If we were to pick out two GTA parts that enjoy the best opinion amongst the players, those would undoubtedly be GTA San Andreas and GTA 5. If we think about what those games had to them, which led to such big success, there would probably be a few things to point out. What's certain is that it'd be difficult to choose one thing that made the biggest difference. But in any case, in my humble opinion, the fact that those two games are the only ones that feature countryside areas is not a coincidence. Even though at first glance, it's easy to make that conclusion. I decided to consider this subject deeper, and eventually it turned out that the non-urban areas are way more important than one may think. But let's first answer the questions. What are those areas even there for, and why are they apparently so important? After all, a city seems to be the most crucial element of the game's world. And yes, it's hard to argue with that thesis. Cities are concentrations of people. There's something going on everywhere. We're surrounded by incredible and complicated infrastructure. We meet people on the streets from various social groups, ranging from gangsters to businessmen. Moreover, an abundance of different forms of entertainment. Fun fairs, bowling, golf courses, tennis, a city is a winner in that aspect. Every corner there's something to do, some sport to perform, or stores where we can buy something. There's hardly a way to get bored. In short, wherever we look, there's bound to be something that'll draw our attention, and the possibilities seem endless. And now, if we look at some villages or deserts, they look quite miserable compared to a city. A few cracked roads. Around us, sure, a beautiful but at the same time monotonous landscape. Occasionally, we may be able to spot an abandoned shack amongst the trees, not too many people, and it's so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. And if we look at it like that, we could congratulate the developers for not including any countryside in GTA Vice City or GTA 4, for example. However, as per usual, the world is a bit more complicated than it seems at first glance. Sure, if we got a GTA that would take place only in the countryside without a bigger city, then such a title, even as a GTA part, I would bet a lot that it would not be the greatest of successes. And despite that the opposite case, a one in which we get a game which as a world has only a big city makes way more sense, it's still far from an ideal solution. That's because our brains are built in such a way that we simply need diversity and new experiences. The success of platforms like TikTok and YouTube Shorts is not a coincidence. The brain likes new stimuli. In the case of short videos, it's being bombarded with them all the time. The rewarding system in the brain is constantly fed, which increases our desire for more and more stimuli and could even become difficult to control over time. GTA is no different. Whilst we go around the city in, let's say, GTA 4 doing mission after mission, then even despite that the story may surprise us from time to time or introduce a new thread, unfortunately, everything is taking place on the same streets, around the same buildings, amongst the same people. An ideal solution would be to, at some point, put a player in a different environment, for example, away from the city. It seems as if the developers were well aware of that a long time ago already, after seeing how big of a success GTA San Andreas became. However, non-urban areas returned only in GTA 5, because prior to that, there was no realistic possibility to create a game that would include them in a proper state. The prequels were, after all, based on the maps from the previous game, plus the hardware limitations of the PSP. No way to implement any countryside. No discussion about that.
No discussion.
Let alone the fact that there was no time to design new areas of the world for these two games. There was also not a lot of time for the development of GTA 4, especially that the creators had to take a huge step forward in terms of the technical aspect of the game, due to the possibilities that the new consoles offered. The DLCs for GTA 4, it's a similar case to the prequels. The focus was to extend the story, rather than the map itself. GTA Chinatown Wars was released on PSP as well, and even there, the developers had to cut Alderney, so no debate about non-urban areas here. So we can say that as soon as the opportunity arose, Rockstar immediately created a world that included rural areas. Not only that, the countryside in GTA 5 constituted the majority of the map. And now some of you may think, well, fine, this theory makes some sense. But what if after some time, a player gets bored of the countryside the same way they get bored with the city? It's a valid point, but the theory still works. The same rule applies as always. After all, we all like to replay a game we like or rewatch a film we discovered a half a year ago. Same here. After some time spent outside of town, it's simply cool to return there, even though we found it boring not that long ago. Therefore, the countryside adds color to the gameplay and very needed diversity. Although non-urban areas, in theory, seem like a boring alternative to a city, In practice, it's a different story. See, it's a fully fledged part of the world which lives its own life that simply isn't as packed with content and that offers a completely different vibe. The fact that there's less of everything there does not necessarily mean that there's nothing interesting to be found there. Quite the opposite, only that one has to take a different perspective to notice them. Take the desert from GTA San Andreas. You would think it's just a boring desert, but the truth is that we can find many interesting places there. We got the big-ass radar, about which we can read some interesting info on the internet.
613 satellite in Bone County picking up some weird stuff. Cock-a-doodle-doo!
Elsewhere in that apparently boring desert, we got the secret military base, heavily linked with alien research. Yet at another location, the ghost town, which has a very interesting background to it as well. Then we got some rock formations, rivers, hills, and cool finds everywhere. Some body bags near a road or a bar for UFO conspirators. And as if that weren't enough, the abandoned airstrip full of plane wrecks that looks as if it witnessed an event that would be worthy of a documentary about it. And all this accompanied by brilliantly matched music on the radio stations, such as KDST or Radio X, which boosts our experience while exploring this area. We should also add various activities. I mean, ones that would be awkward to take place in a city, or ones that would be difficult to organize in a city. Off-road races on sandy wastelands, motocross in the hills, or other unpaved tracks, hunting missions or exploration of the quarry, all that only makes sense in rural areas. Also, mountains and huge lakes. Those would be impossible to place in metropolises, whilst here, they fit like a glove. We also can't forget about the myths and legends, which suit the countryside a lot more than crowded streets of a city. Cause who could imagine a Bigfoot walking down the pavement in downtown Los Santos? Those sort of characters are associated with forests, because it's in those places that our imagination begins to play tricks on us. The illuminated city streets at night are simply never going to be able to imitate that. Another important aspect is that the lack of non-urban areas is definitely not boosting the immersion. The world feels like it's missing something, and the city just unnaturally ends. It's simply way more natural if we, like in GTA 5 for instance, have a huge city that towards the north turns into forests, desert, and villages. Of course, to the south, we've got just the ocean, but that's natural for many real-life cities, including Los Angeles. Hence, we're used to it. And as it is in the case of Vice City or Liberty City, those look like some small islands in the middle of a limitless ocean. In GTA San Andreas, for example, all regions very smoothly and naturally transition between each other, and the same goes for GTA 5. At some point, there are gradually less buildings, and we feel like we're part of some bigger world, and that we're heading towards another exciting location. You know, when we leave Los Santos, we leave just the city, and not the entire lonely island. The world, despite that it's just an impression, seems enormous to us. GTA San Andreas is a perfect example. People always admire how huge the map was, even though we saw in the definitive edition what is actually the truth. It suddenly turned out that from Grove Street, we were able to easily admire the view of the mountain located on the other end of the map, and from that mountain itself, we were able to see the entire map. Despite that, because the non-urban areas are present in GTA San Andreas, while we're driving on the highway from Los Santos to San Fierro, we feel as if the map were endless. We're going, passing by tree after tree, meadows, forests, and then boom, another fully fledged huge city emerges on the horizon, pure gold. Then it all makes perfect sense, because that's exactly what we're used to in the real world. The world seems infinite. Hence, implementing a similar pattern in GTA where cities are separated with non-urban areas, small villages, and such, it just resembles more of what we know from real life. Therefore, it's just easier to get immersed into such a world. The thing that's the most exciting in all of this is that we know that the non-urban areas will be present in the upcoming GTA 6, and there will be a lot of them. How can we be so certain? Well, it's obvious after watching the trailer and after seeing what the fans created in the shape of the potential GTA 6 map, which was made thanks to the information from the leak, the trailer, as well as with the help of the real-life map of Miami, upon which the city in GTA 6 will be based on. Either way, we know that the countryside will be present, that there will be some smaller towns, something similar to Sandy Shores or Paleto Bay from GTA 5. There will also be a huge lake, swamp, and something that was missing so much in GTA Vice City, the incredibly atmospheric Florida Keys. However, the question arises whether Rockstar is going to be able to generate an appropriate atmosphere in those locations. You know, the sole presence of a place is cool, but it's also crucial that the things associated with such a place are going on there. What I mean is that, for example, if Rockstar places a farm into their game, something similar to the Hilltop Farm from GTA San Andreas, it shouldn't be a dusted ghost farm, but it should be filled with life. Let there be some people working the land, others driving combined harvesters or tractors, yet others milking cows, just like Take-Two is milking GTA Online. In GTA San Andreas and GTA 5, this aspect was scarcely developed, but it wasn't something very common. In the GTA 6 trailer, we were given a foretaste of something like that. Cause we got that Swamp Lovers Club or something, where people swim in the mud or racing some off-road vehicles. If we could be able to encounter that in free roam, that'd be amazing. Imagine wandering around the countryside, and then you see a race of monster trucks, or someone ducking someone in the mud, or a group of maniacs racing airboats through the Everglades. Or better yet, if we could take part in those activities. I'd definitely love to see something like that. Sticking to the Everglades, y'all probably remember that in GTA 5, we can go on a tour in Vinewood with a guide. Also, in GTA 4, we can go on a heli tour that is additionally enriched by the commentary of the pilot. Taking into account how complex GTA 6 will be and how interesting those areas will be, I can't imagine a scenario in which something like that is missing from the game. You know, some airboat tour around the Everglades, a thing very popular in real life. Similar to the heli tours in New York or bus trips in Hollywood. If the developers refer to those activities in the previous games, it cannot be any different in this case. The Everglades has always been the environment in which smugglers have loved to conduct their smuggling runs within, due to its enormous and often difficult to access wetlands. The history of smuggling goes as far as Prohibition days in the 20s of the 20th century, when alcohol was being smuggled from the Caribbean. Later, in the second half of the 20th century, the Everglades became one of the main routes of drug smuggling. I'm talking about cocaine in the 70s and 80s. The smugglers also often used the aforementioned airboats. By the way, apparently, the Everglades are used for illegal operations even nowadays, although the local as well as federal law authorities made it very hard for smugglers in that area. Personally, I also hope that the developers decide on a bigger role for the non-urban areas in terms of the story. I don't know about you, but I find it strange that since the GTA series is putting more and more value on realism, the gameplay itself hardly ever includes the protagonist getting rid of the traces of the crimes they conduct. Often, we just casually get into a public building without any mask or anything. We kill some big sitting chief, we wipe out dozens of guards in front of the police, then we go to a pay and spray and we're clear. We never care about not getting spotted, we never dispose of a body. The series hardly made any progress in that aspect. Shame really, because that's something that boosts the immersion. For example, take a look at the cutscene in which Nico throws Vlad into the river to cover up the traces of the murder. Now, when there will be a lot of countryside areas in GTA 6, the developers could think about including more situations like that. And even if such trips would take too long and the developers would consider them too monotonous, they could add a trip skip feature, just in case. So a player could teleport themselves directly to the location where they're going to be getting rid of the evidence. You know, so those who don't enjoy long trips have a simple and straightforward solution, while the people who want to get fully immersed are able to do it manually. A win-win situation. In GTA 6, since there's meant to be a hell of a lot of animal species, the hunting should return, but even more developed than in GTA 5. Additionally, they could also throw in fishing, or missions that would involve photographing the local fauna. Or imagine a night walk in a forest, in silence, with only the hum of the trees. And then suddenly, something is creeping up on us among the bushes. You gotta be careful, because you don't know whether it's a deer or something a lot more dangerous. It could even have significance to the story. For example, you escaping a gang, and you have to be careful so they won't find you. Other than that, perhaps some trade of illegal animals. We could either participate in it ourselves or combat it by rescuing smuggled alligators, or to earn some extra by selling snakes or parrots. On the subject of the GTA 6 document, which sums up everything we know about the game and from which most of the information comes from the leaks, let's take a moment to talk about what we found out about the rural areas in GTA 6 so far. First of all, something that has already been mentioned, fishing. Unfortunately, I can't tell you how exactly it was concluded because the developers haven't explained it specifically in the document. And a lot of what we know has been inferred from the debug texts and other stuff like that. In any case, in one of the clips of the leaked footage, we can see a spawn location for a delivery van in Port Gellhorn, the small town that is some sort of an equivalent of Paleto Bay from GTA 5. And judging by the security cameras that are present in that area, it's quite obvious that there's going to be a mission connected to it that'll have something to do with the deliveries. Who knows, maybe in those exact delivery vans we're able to encounter the alligators, about which there's so much speculation going on in terms of GTA 6. Apart from that, the document names as many as 19 animal species that are most likely to make an appearance in GTA 6. Those animals include pythons, seagulls, skunks, and raccoons that, additionally, we will be able to sometimes encounter searching for food in trash cans. That's one of those masterclass moves by Rockstar in terms of the attention to detail. Then we've got alligators, boars, wading birds, squirrels, frogs, crayfish, lizards, and the skunk ape, which is like a Bigfoot in Miami, so a mythical creature, not authentic. Perhaps we'll see a similar thread here as in GTA 5, where we chase after Bigfoot, only to discover that it was some maniac in a costume. Other than that, we got whales, pigeons, opossums, horses, cows, deer, and bucks, which also suggests mountainous areas. It really does sound amazing, I can't lie. In terms of the random events, a very interesting item of the list is the one that is to do with a sunken vehicle in the mud, where our task is most likely going to be to help someone get it back out. Another thing is hydraulic fracturing, which is a method of extracting oil and natural gas from underground rock formations by injecting high pressure fluid, and that is meant to take place in the Everglades. Sounds a bit weird as for GTA, but who knows? Maybe Jason will become an Arab sheik or something. Going further, we also got an item which mentions something to do with hunting, where it says both injured. I don't know about you, but I'd suspect an accident where two buddies went hunting. However, something went wrong, and eventually they ended up becoming victims of wild animals. Another interesting thing is that we apparently will be able to encounter a runaway cow. I really hope it happens because that seems like something typical for Rockstar, to implement something totally random, an event in which our task would be to lead the runaway cow back to its owner. Yet another item that sounds very intriguing is called Forest Phone, and maybe I'm a bit too hopeful, but I imagine in this case something similar to the mysterious phone calls from Mr. Black from GTA Vice City. But in this case, we'd have to come to a forest to look for something or other stuff like that. And then we got a thing that additionally confirms my intuition of a true detective, is that there will be some form of swamp tours. See, one of the items says about a random event that'll have something to do with the crashed swamp tour. I mean, you know, some tours were probably driven around the swamp in a vehicle and the driver had an accident. Yet another item suggests that we're going to have an activity in which our task is going to be locating lost tourists. The search will take place in locations such as caves, which would be bound to give us some adrenaline. Also, yet again, the mountainous region is suggested, as the name of one of the events is Mountain Biker Corps. That's not the end. In terms of random events, we can also find an event to do with a plane crash in the Everglades, encounters with snakes, something about trains in the forest, and something that I'm excited about as a fan of myths, an item that says forest figure, which obviously suggests some creepy quests involving searching for monsters. There's also a mention of yet another monster living in Florida. So it seems as if the developers are putting a lot of effort in the mythology aspect. This time, it's a creature based on the Marvel creature called Man-Thing, a swamp monster living in the Everglades. That would be it for today. If you enjoyed the video and you don't want to miss the upcoming ones, I recommend you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and turn on the notifications. And right now, I encourage you to check out the videos that are being displayed to the right, in case you haven't seen it yet. Meanwhile, I'm saying goodbye, take care, and see you soon.